Hey guys, Ethan here with Terminal.com, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use Terminal along with a cool little app called Huginn in order to do some neat stuff on the web. Huginn is an open source project, and it's used to set up something called agents. And agents pay attention to different websites for you, and they're able to take action on your behalf or notify you of certain things. And so you can do anything from watch airline ticket prices to use it to notify you if certain topics are trending on Twitter, to a whole bunch of other things. Really, the only limit is your own creativity. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to use it to set up a little app that will notify you of the weather for any location you like every morning via email. And this comes directly from our tutorial on starting your own Huginn instance using Terminal.com. So if you'd like some supplemental information, there's a link to that in the description of this video. Feel free to jump over there. There's a whole bunch of code snippets that just makes it a lot faster to get the work done. So we're going to start right here at the article. And as with many of our projects, the quickest way to get Huginn up and running on Terminal.com is to begin with our snapshot. So I'm just going to open this in a new tab. And here you'll see the snapshot of Huginn set up in a terminal. Now all we're going to do is we're going to name it. We'll call this test Huginn. And one thing you're going to want to do if you're using this long term is you're going to want to turn off autopause. And the reason for that is with autopause on, the server will pause after roughly an hour of you not using it, which will obviously shut down your Huginn agents. So turn off autopause and hit start. Now Huginn is named for the two ravens that sit on the mythological god Odin's shoulders. One was named Huginn, and I believe the other one was Munin. And he'd send them out over the world, and they'd basically be his eyes and ears, and they'd report to him every day what they saw and heard. And so that's where the name comes from. And it really is a pretty cool little app. As soon as this boots up, most of the difficult setup has been done. And you'll see we just open right up to the terminal, and all we have to do, you see here it says, "Are you ready to set up Huginn?" You say yes, hit enter, and this can take around 30 seconds. But yeah, virtually all of the the brain work has been done here for you. So one of the cool parts of using Terminal.com to set up apps like Huginn. All right, so now it's asking us if we want Huginn to be able to email us. And for our purposes, we're going to be using email as its method for notifying us of certain events, and we want to hit yes. Now this is going to prompt us to set up the SMTP credentials for Huginn so that it has an email address that it can send us messages from. And one of the easiest ways to do this is using our own Gmail account. So right here it's going to ask for the domain name. For this we're going to use gmail.com. And just hit enter. Username. Now because Gmail doesn't require you to type in your full email address as your username when you log in, you can just use your regular username. And then your password. So this is the password that you would use to log into your email account. Now you'll notice that even though I'm typing it in here, you're not going to see any letters on the screen. So make sure you hit your keys properly because it can be difficult to figure out whether or not you've set the proper password. And I'll show you later how you can actually change that after the configuration process. But just don't be nervous if you don't see anything popping up on the screen. It's not broken, it's just for security. So the last thing we're going to see is this little prompt, and it will say when you're ready to go, simply run form and start. and we're going to wait until we see a log line that looks something like this. And what that is, that's our signal that the web server is up, and we'll be able to then visit the admin page for our Huginn account. All right, and there it is. So we find our Huginn admin page, very simple. Come up to the URL for this particular terminal and copy that. Open up a new window, paste it, and then right after the unique ID of the terminal, so just before .terminal, you want to add -3000. We want to point this browser page at port 3000 on that terminal. When it comes up, we should see an account creation page for Huginn. All right, our agents are standing by. So at this point, you'll be able to choose between logging in and signing up. Because this is a brand new server, there's nothing to log into. So we'll hit sign up. Now the invitation code is try Huginn, unless you've changed it in your, I think that's in the .env file. But if you're just following along with this tutorial, it's just try Huginn. Use the email address that you would like it to send notifications to, and then set up a username and password. And that's just to log in to your Huginn account. So that's not going to be the same credentials necessarily as the ones that you set up over on your terminal. Now we're here at the administration page. You can see we've created 0 agents. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to start building some agents. So agents are what Huginn uses in order to do things on the web. And they've got a series of different agent types that are already set up. And then you can choose from and configure, and they work together in order to perform certain tasks. So in this case, for this tutorial, we're going to be, as I said, creating a little app that emails you the weather for your location, or any location that you choose, every morning at 8 a.m. And I'll show you how we start doing this. In order to do it, we need to first set up 3 different Huginn agents that are all going to work in tandem in order to get this job done. The first type of agent is going to be a weather agent. And you click the drop down for the different types of agents, and all the way at the bottom, we've got weather agent. Now, we can name it, so we'll just call this weather alert. And set your schedule, and you can see here you can set it to perform this task at different intervals, and we'll say we want it to run every morning at just before we head to work. With Huginn, you can choose between 2 different services to check the weather. It will work with both forecast.io or Weather Underground. Whichever one you choose, you're going to need to get an API key from them. And I can tell you from experience that forecast.io is significantly easier to get an API key from. You just create an account, sign in, and your API key is right there on your main page. Whereas Weather Underground has a questionnaire you have to answer, and it's an extra step, and it's irritating if you're trying to get something done. So I prefer forecast.io, but Weather Underground is certainly an option as well. So in order to get your API key, you're going to look for forecast.io, developer.forecast.io, and if you don't already have an account with them, they'll prompt you to create an account. It's simple, it's free, and as long as you're not making more than 1,000 calls per day, you'll get free access to the tool. So just sign in. And this is your login page, and it will show you here, when it loads, how many calls you have left for the day, how many calls you've made this month, and your API key. So you just copy that, bring it over to Huginn, and enter it as your API key, and that's it. Now, for forecast.io, it can't use zip codes for weather. It requires GPS coordinates. Now, if you haven't memorized GPS coordinates for your location of interest, there's a really easy way to get them. Let's say we want to check the weather in Honolulu. We would simply Google search Honolulu, and then you'll pull up the Google map for it. And I'll show you how using a Google map you can find GPS coordinates very easily. Now there are a couple of ways to do this. First of all, you'll notice here in the URL that these are the coordinates for this particular location. But again, maybe you want to check coordinates for somewhere and you don't remember the name, you just kind of remember where it is. Like say, I know I want to check for Kailua, but wasn't sure how to spell Kailua or whatever. I just knew that if I found a map, I could pull it up. All you have to do is just right-click on the map and select what's here. And it will pull up the actual GPS coordinates for that location. And all you do is copy those and bring them over into your Huginn setup. Now there are actually two things you need to do to format these so that Huginn can use them properly, or perhaps so that forecast.io can use them properly. The first thing is these coordinates should be no longer than 4 decimal places. It just seems to have an issue with anything longer than that. Perhaps it's because it's just too specific. The other thing is you'll notice that Google automatically inserts a space between the comma from the first coordinate and the second coordinate, beginning of the second coordinate. So just eliminate that space by pressing backspace and you should be done. The next step is to select which day. It's either 0 for today or 1 for tomorrow. And this expected update period in days, that's the maximum length that the program should expect between running times. And we just leave it at 2. So we'll create this agent. Now there's a little bug in Huginn, which can be a little confusing unless you play with it for a while. This working column here shows you whether or not your agent is operational, and it will say no if everything doesn't seem like it's okay. So I don't know why this opens up in this way, but you can see here that if we actually come over and press run, it will queue up an action, an event, and then it will actually run that event if you've set up the agent properly. And when we reload the page, so you can see here it's running a new event. When we reload the page, this will suddenly and miraculously change to yes. It's a little bug. I'm not sure why it does that, but just know that if it first shows up to no, try running it and make sure that it changes over. And we'll reload the page and you'll see what I mean. So now it's all of a sudden working. Don't know why it does that, but it does. And it actually happens with a handful of the different agent types. So always think of that as an option if you're setting up agents and they seem to be not working. Try running them. All right, so we need a second agent though. So we've got this agent. It checks the weather and it's going to pull in a report, but that's all it can do. It can't automatically email that to us by itself. It just does one thing. It just checks the weather. So we need an agent that can email us that report as well. So we're going to set up a new agent. And this second type of agent is going to be something called an email agent. And you'll notice that there are 2 different types of email agents in Huginn. The first is a standard email agent. The second is an email digest agent. The difference is an email agent will send the email immediately as soon as it gets an event. The email digest agent collects events all day and then sends them at a specific time. So we want an email agent because that weather checker is going to run at 8 a.m. and we want our email immediately after that. So we'll use an email agent. Now let's just name this like weather email. And the source. So this is where we're selecting which agent this is going to be interfacing with in order to get its information. And of course that's weather alert. Now you can set multiple sources if this was say like a digest agent or even an email agent, as long as they were all running at the same time or weren't time dependent on each other. But you can set multiple sources in here, and you can hit propagate immediately if you'd like it to do its job immediately after receiving the information from Weather Alert. You can set the subject and headline to whatever you like. I tend to leave them the way they are there, just because there's no sense in fixing it if it ain't broken. And then hit create agent. And again, this very well may come onto our main dashboard. So yeah, not working. Now, again, if you just hit run, it tends to fix itself. And again, I don't know why that happens, but it does. So we've now queued a run in the system. And you'll see it's running a new event. And we can check to see if our email has come in. Now, there are a couple of additional steps that may be required depending on how much you've worked with Huginn in the past. But let's just check our email first and see if it's come in. So you can see here we have a new notification. Our email has come in. We have an additional tutorial. If your email is not coming in at this point, there are a few things that could be going on. The first thing to check is you come back over to your Huginn agent, and you reload this, and this should turn to yes at this point because it's already working. The first thing to check would be your logs, and so you can click on the agent. You can click on Weather Alert to see the number of events it's run, and it should show you, okay, yeah, 1 minute ago it created this event, and that event should have gone to the weather email agent, which we can then check, and it will have a series of log files that describe what it's done. And if there's an error, if it truly isn't working, it will tell you in the log files that it's not running properly. On the other hand, if it is running properly, or if Huginn believes that it's running properly, it will say, you know, send an email to the email address at this time. So if it's still not working, it's possible that Google is stopping Huginn from logging in and sending you an email. And we have an additional tutorial that teaches you how to ensure that Google grants access to your account. I'll put a link to that lower down in the description to this video as well. The way to check if that's actually happening, though, will be to come back to your terminal, and you want to go open up your files and your editor, just so you can see some of the files. And we want to go to our log screen here, the log directory, and there's a delayed job log. And any job that is for some reason not running properly will be listed here with an error alongside of it. So you can see here that, where do we have it? Run schedule, receive, schedule, send message, right here. So you can see here that this is a send message job, and that would be the one that our email agent was running. And if it didn't come through, you'd see an error after it. If that's happening, it will list the error type, and more often than not, it's a SMTP credential error if you're using gmail.com. And like I said, that second tutorial shows you how to fix that really quickly. All you have to do is go to a specific URL, and it will grant the app a 10-minute access window to your account, which will then fix the problem more or less permanently. So check that out if you're still having this issue. But if you're not having the issue, now you've noticed that, you know, we're kind of all set. We have this new notification that's coming in, but it's still not totally useful, and that's because it's sending us the entire event load. So we get the high in Fahrenheit and all these different, Celsius, a bunch of different information that we may not really be interested in. And so we can add a secondary step to our Huginn agents that's going to process this information down into something that's more usable. If we go back to agents here, I'll show you how we do that. We need to add an intermediary between the weather alert and the weather email. So an agent that takes the information, processes it into something more readable, and then sends it to the email agent for send off. And this is going to be a specific type of agent called an event formatting agent. And we can just call it, we'll call it the weather reformat. Again, you can't schedule it because it happens automatically after your original agent runs. Keep events forever, that's fine. Sources, weather alert. So it's going to pull in the information from forecast.io, and it will eventually send it off to our other agent, which will email it to us. So down here, you can see formatting an event formatting agent has a handful of options that we haven't seen yet. First, I want to take a look at this some other field. We don't need that. And so you can just eliminate it by clicking the minus button. And then I want to skip to the bottom real quick and check out these last two options here. So you can oftentimes read the description for this particular agent on the right hand side here, and it should explain most of what's going on. Clean mode, I don't really know what that does. I just leave it in clean mode, and I haven't really read through this section, but the skip agent and skip agent created at are originally set to false. What these are, these tack two additional pieces of information onto the event load that are just really timestamps for when and where the event happened. And you can set them to true in order to not add those pieces of information. So you're essentially skipping the agent information and skipping the created at information. And that just is just because we don't need it for this particular app. The last thing is the message, and in order to edit this properly, we'll hit toggle view, so you can just see the JSON here, and we'll come over to, you can really set this to whatever you like, but for speed and ease for this tutorial, we're going to just copy it from this blog post that we have. So we'll come down here to where they start to mention the event formatting agent and just copy the message that they've got listed here. So right between the quotes, and that should be all we need to do for this. We will save this agent. We have to update one more thing. We're going to take our weather email and edit it so that it draws its information from the weather reformatter rather than weather alert. That way, the email that it sends us is the one that's been formatted, for readability. And we do that really simply by just removing that source and selecting a new one. Update it, and we'll run this one more time to see if it's working properly. We do that by coming down to the weather alert. And by the way, you'll notice that because these two are reliant on this weather alert running, you won't be able to run them individually. So you'll click here and run isn't an option. And that's because they rely exclusively on weather alert. One of the interesting things you can do in order to check the reliances of various agents on other agents, you can hit this view diagram button and it will lay it out visually so that if you're creating several agents that are working on different time periods or drawing from several sources, you'll have a visual representation of how that works with your particular setup. So you can see here we start with the weather alert, sends it to the weather reformatter, and that sends it to the weather email agent. Just a cool feature that allows you to keep things in your visual memory. So we're going to go ahead and click run, and that should send us one new email. You can can see it's just about instantaneous. And you can see here, the message is formatted significantly more readable. Today's conditions look like light rain until afternoon, high of 76, low of 68, 52% chance of precipitation. And that's how you do it. That's setting up Huginn on your account. Now, there are some resources in the blog post that will send you to other cool tutorials and the GitHub page where there's a lot of information for setup as well. I hope this was useful for you. Go out and play with it, and if you find some useful things to do with it, let us know. And enjoy. Be sure to check in next time.